Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and today I'm cooking wood-fired chicken flatbread. Today we're cooking on the Clementi Wood-Fired Oven, which is essentially a big pizza oven, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do in there. So we're gonna start off with roasting off some chicken breasts inside. We're also gonna cook our flatbread in there and some of our veggies, but we need to get started by making our flatbread dough. The dough we're making today is sort of a play on our Neapolitan style pizza dough, so it's gonna follow the same guidelines, but we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil as well as some sugar, and that's gonna kind of make the dough a little bit more tender, but still make it plenty pliable and we can stretch it really well. I'm gonna start with 325 grams of warm water. This is about 120 degree water, which is going to help activate the yeast. Speaking of which, we've got 7 grams of dry active yeast, then 10 grams kosher salt, 10 grams white sugar, 25 grams of olive oil, and 500 grams of double-aught flour. Now with the hook attachment, we're just gonna run this on low, probably setting 2. And this will come together and form a ball in about 1 minute. And then we're gonna give it 6 minutes total after that. All right, so we've given this time for the gluten to develop. We've got a nice smooth dough now. And at this point, we're ready to rest this, to let that gluten relax and to let the fermentation happen where this starts to rise. So we're gonna get this into an oiled bowl. And I'm gonna cover this with some plastic wrap that's also been sprayed. And we're just gonna let this sit, preferably in a slightly warm place so that we can expedite the process. I'm gonna get the Clementi fired up with just a small wood fire right in the center of the deck, probably about 4 logs to get started. Now once these logs have worked their way down to coals, we can go ahead and slide them aside and move the fire off to this left wall. And then you'll clean up the cooking surface just using a wire brush, move that off toward the fire. But make sure that your coals aren't too far spread out so that the heat won't just disappear. And now we'll just close the door and let the chamber warm up. Now I want to roast off some tomatoes and red bell pepper for our flatbread. And we're going to do that using the multi-cooking system so we can slide this right next to the flame. Now obviously we've got those butted right up against the fire, so if you were doing this at home, say on a charcoal grill or on your YS640, you would just take that hatch out or put it over direct coals so that the flame is actually getting as close to that tomato and the bell pepper as possible. Check that out. That's the kind of color we're looking for. We're just gonna rotate this so we can get that on all sides. All right, that's all the further we want to take these tomatoes, so we're going to pull them off, flip our pepper, and let it continue to blacken. All right, so our pepper is blackened on all sides. You can feel that the flesh is getting nice and tender. So just to help this complete the process, we're going to put it in a zip top bag, close this up and let it steam for 10 to 15 minutes, and at that point, the skin should be able to easily release from the flesh. Now I want to prepare some chicken breasts, some bone-in chicken breasts is going to go with our flatbread. We're going to cook the chicken in the oven as well. So like I said, this is bone-in. There's extra fat and stuff on here that we don't necessarily need, but I'm not going to trim this up too much. I'll just take off any excess stuff that's easy to get off. And then we'll take the flesh away from the bones and the skin and everything else after it's cooked. You just want to get rid of this so you don't have any flare-ups as the fat drips down. You're going to hit this with just a little bit of olive oil to allow our rub to stick. And we're seasoning these with the Cattleman's Grill Ranchero. This is a fantastic poultry seasoning. We'll go under the skin. We'll go on top of the skin. Anywhere we see exposed flesh, we're going to get that seasoned up. All right, so we'll just let the rub set up for a minute and then get it into the oven. Now we just place these on the rack for the multi-cooking system. We've got the pan underneath to catch the fat dripping so we don't get any big flare-ups. And as we move this in here, we're going to move it on the opposite side of the fire so that we don't get too much browning initially. All right, you can see how much this has increased in volume now. This is ready to turn out and divide into individual portions. So we're roughly going to estimate about a third for each portion. So this recipe will yield 3 of these flatbreads. What I'm going to do is just kind of work this dough back on itself to form a tight little ball. And then we'll let that sit, and again, the gluten will relax. We'll gain just a little bit more volume, but we want to give this about half an hour now to sit. Good idea to cover this with some plastic wrap so that you don't get any thick skin that forms on it. All right, so we're sitting about 125 degrees internal temperature, but you can see we're getting a really nice crust and some good color on the outside. So we're just gonna let this ride. All right, here's that red bell pepper we've allowed to steam in the bag. At this point, we're gonna get rid of that stem and the seeds inside. And then we'll flip it over and we can take all this skin off. So underneath that charred skin is this really beautiful, smoky, tender pepper flesh. This stuff has great mouthfeel and great flavor. And for today's application, we're just going to cut this into strips to go onto the flatbread. Well, these look fantastic now. Let's check on the internal temperature. Sitting right at about 160, which is just perfect. So we'll go ahead and pull these off. That's some good looking chicken breasts right there. And look how super tender this is. Just pull right apart. Really juicy. Flavor spot on. Now we were roasting pretty hot on that chicken in the 400 to 500 degree range, but at this point we really want to crank that temperature up so that we can cook this flatbread really quick. I'm going to throw another log on, and I also want to put the door in so we can trap the heat. We'll just give the chicken probably about 5 minutes to rest before we pull it, and in the meantime we can start stretching our dough. All right, so we'll throw down a little bit of flour, starting to flatten this thing out. You can go for whatever shape you want. If you want to go straight up round pizza shape, that's cool. You can go oblong if you like. It really doesn't matter. I think we might go for a little bit of an oval shape tonight. So we'll just try and stretch this as evenly as possible, and you can really see through it if you hold it up to the light. And you can tell where you have some thin spots and some thicker spots, but overall that's pretty consistent. And our cherry tomatoes here, I'm going to take these off the vine, cut them in half for the flatbread. And you guys do whatever toppings you like. I'm gonna add in some red onions here, maybe some sliced jalapeno. We got some marinated artichoke hearts. This is chunky, it's rustic, you know, but we're not gonna overload it. Then of course we've got that beautiful roasted red pepper that we did earlier. And I'm just gonna tear into this chicken, still hot. Super juicy. I'm just gonna sneak a little taste here. Love that rub. You can taste the wood fire for sure. All right, so we'll spread some chicken out. And I want to top that with some smoked cheddar. And last, just a drizzle of some olive oil over the top. Here we're just going to shoot the peel. No sticking. And head over to the oven. Just going to land that right there in the center of the deck. Nice browning on this side, so we're just going to turn this to make sure it cooks plenty even. You can see the bottom still got a ways to go. Now for one last finishing touch, you're going to make a drizzle out of honey and black pepper. This is something my buddy Eric Gephardt over at Kamado Joe showed me, and I couldn't get enough of it. Goes great with pizza crust. So we'll start off with about a half cup of wildflower honey, and then we're going to add in, well, let's start with a good tablespoon of black pepper. Look at that, beautiful color on the crust. We're getting a little bit of browning on top. As a matter of fact, if we want some more of that, we go right up to the top of the oven. Let the flame kiss the very top of that flatbread, and you get just a little extra browning. This is perfectly done now. You can see that the dough's cooked all the way through. We're ready to take this off. Beautiful, beautifully cooked. Jalapenos are even tender now. Let's get some of that black pepper honey drizzle on top. Love the way this is coming together. Let's get a taste. I love the way the sweetness of the honey works with everything else. You're getting some sweetness from the bell pepper too, and that works so well with the savory chicken breast, and that melted cheese, can't beat it. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the video, please hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below. And hey, let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to thesauce.atbbq.com. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.